Hello, I am Jennifer Brewer with the Arkansas Behavior Support Specialist. Thank you for tuning in to this behavior break on crisis plans. Oftentimes, crisis plans are developed while a functional behavioral assessment is being conducted. FBAs can take a while, but the student behavior is dangerous. Therefore, immediate action is needed to keep the student and everyone else safe. However, FBAs are not a prerequisite for a crisis plan. When a person is in crisis, they often find themselves in fight, flight, or freeze mode. During this time, a person's IQ can drop up to 30 points. This means the student and adults involved. Having a predetermined plan can help ensure the safety of everyone involved. Let's get started and learn more. Crisis plans are needed for times when a student may be at risk of harming themselves or others. These plans provide steps for staff to follow when the student begins to escalate. Staff and other students can prepare ahead of time for procedures to follow during a crisis and be able to respond efficiently and effectively to keep everyone safe. When determining whether or not a student's behavior requires a crisis plan, the team should consider if the student's behavior poses a significant risk to self or others. If so, a plan to ensure safety and rapid de-escalation may need to be developed. As part of the materials, you have been provided a student crisis plan template. With this template, you can include the student's picture. This is helpful when your student's behavior includes elopement off campus and can provide a description for police. Before including a picture, you should refer to your district's handbook policy concerning the use of student photos. Also, when including a picture, it is best practice to have guardian consent, as this could be shared with outside sources. You can customize the template with your school's logo. The crisis plan begins with student demographics, contact information for parents or guardians, as well as an emergency contact, places a student may be if he or she is missing during school hours, and medical information. Other than student demographics, contact information, and medical information, crisis plan should include 5 essential components: the behavior definition, specific procedures, data collection tools and procedures, staff and student responsibilities, and reporting procedures. Behavior definition should be written using measurable and observable terms. Definition should include only what is seen or heard. Think about action words you would use when describing what the student is doing. The crisis level of the behavior should be so clearly defined, all staff members know when the behavior has reached the intensity level that equates a crisis has begun. For more information on defining behavior, please refer to FBA Module 2, Defining Target Behavior, and the FBA Module Series on the Arkansas Behavior Support Specialist website. Here you can see where to include the behavior definition when using the crisis plan template provided. The team will develop steps for when a crisis occurs, not when the potential for a crisis is present. These procedures need to be specific and detailed. Just as the behavior definition needs to be clear, the procedures also need to be clear, so there is no guessing what to do when the crisis occurs. The team should ensure everyone involved understands their role and responsibility. When developing specific procedures, consider antecedent strategies. Antecedents are those events or stimuli that occur before a behavior. Therefore, antecedent procedures are in place to reduce the likelihood a crisis will occur. Sometimes fellow students are involved in a crisis plan. There are times a student may need to alert a neighboring teacher or office staff. A peer may take a green card to the appropriate staff member, which alerts them assistance is needed in a specific classroom. These procedures should be included in the crisis plan. The team should ensure this student receives appropriate training and practice with their task. It may be necessary for the team to obtain parental or guardian consent for the student to be listed and assist in the crisis plan. Shown here is the portion of the crisis plan template for the specific procedures. In this first box, you will list the procedures to follow. In the second box, you will identify who will be doing each step or procedure. It is important to identify backup staff in the event the primary staff member for the procedure is absent or unavailable. In this portion of the crisis plan, the team will include antecedent procedures and identify who will be responsible for carrying out those procedures. These procedures can include increased supervision, planning for transitions, specialized transportation, conducting searches of backpacks and other personal belongings, etc. When a crisis occurs, data should be collected. This can be done either during the crisis or immediately after the occurrence. Waiting any time after the incident increases the likelihood key details will be forgotten. When determining data collection tools and procedures, the team should consider any forms needed for recording data, who will be responsible for data collection, and any other materials needed, such as a timer. Should you or any staff member responsible for data collection need additional training and information, please refer to FBA Module 5, Baseline Data Collection in the FBA Module Series. Here, you can see where to include data collection tools and procedures when using the crisis plan template provided. As part of the crisis plan, the team should include any additional tasks or responsibilities for everyone involved, including staff and students. You can include procedures such as practicing calming techniques when the student is calm and not escalated. You can list processes that can aid in de-escalation. Responsibilities from the student may include deep breathing or other calming techniques. However, remember, when a student is in crisis, the goal is safety of the student, not educating him or her how to use calming techniques. While in a crisis, the student may not comply with prompts for deep breathing. You can also include consequences that will follow a crisis. It is important to understand consequences should not be confused with discipline. Consequences are those events that immediately follow a behavior. This can include restitution practices or removal from the area once calm to receive mental health services. And it can also include things that are punishing to the student, such as restricted access to electronics. The team should consider any training necessary for the staff to perform their assigned responsibilities effectively and with fidelity. The student should also receive training through modeling and practice to perform any responsibilities. Here you can see the crisis plan template and where to include staff and student responsibilities. When a crisis occurs, there should be specific reporting procedures followed. The team will identify when to report the crisis, who will report the crisis, and how to report the crisis. This will all depend on the type of crisis for which you are writing the plan. Some instances will require immediate reporting to parents and others may not. There are times teachers can report the crisis, but in other situations, the administrator or counselor may be responsible for this. The team should determine how the crisis will be reported. Some districts have their own regulations for reporting crisis involving student behavior, so the team should review all these policies. Again, you can see the crisis plan template. Shown here is where to include the reporting procedures. When developing a crisis plan, there are additional components the team should consider. How will the plan be monitored and who is responsible for monitoring the plan? How will decisions be made to terminate the plan and who is responsible for this decision? The crisis plan was developed by a team, so the decision for terminating the plan should be made by that team. The team should also include any current agencies or outside professionals involved, such as mental health therapists, caseworkers, court staff, etc. As you can see, crisis plans are reactions to behavior. Remember, when reacting to crisis behavior, adults are to focus on de-escalating student emotions. This is not a time for lectures, reprimands, or threats. To aid in students' de-escalation, you want to validate and normalize their feelings. We all get escalated and overwhelmed at times. They need to know it's okay to feel the way they're feeling, and then later be taught ways to cope with those feelings in a way that is more appropriate. Remember, in a crisis, you should be concerned about student safety, not educating the student about appropriate behavior. You want to keep at least one arm's length away. However, two is best when possible. Your arm should remain low. When we raise and wave our arms, this can be threatening. Facial expression should remain neutral, and you will want to use a calm, low voice. And lastly, only make promises you can keep. For a simple and effective de-escalation technique, see the behavior break on de-escalation square box breathing. If you have not downloaded the materials yet, you will find a crisis plan info sheet that includes information from this behavior break, the process to aid in de-escalation, and a list of additional resources. Also available is a blank crisis plan template and a sample crisis plan to help guide you in developing a crisis plan for your student. Thank you again for tuning in to this behavior break.